What's up guys, my name is Liam, and today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new PadSmith Crucible Speed Gaming Mousepad. Not only does this have some of the coolest artwork that I've ever seen on a mousepad, but the surface is pretty unique as well. So, is this going to be the perfect gaming mousepad for you? Let's check it out. And before we get started today, I did want to let you know that this was actually sent out to me by PadSmith. However, everything you're going to be hearing in this video is going to be my own words and my own opinions. This did arrive to my front door, flat packaged. Here's the box that it arrived in with the artwork on the front. And as you can see here on the rear, it is this envelope style box. The dimensions are coming in at 490 millimeters in width by 420 millimeters in height. The base is made out of AlphaCell and it is a very flat filling base. As you can see here, they do have their logo imprinted on here, but it is kind of sticky to the touch. Once I did lay this down and plant it to my desk, it was very sticky and I did have to actually peel it off my desk before I was able to move it around. And the stitching was done incredibly well. It does look like all around it does sit slightly below the surface. The surface that is being used here, it is actually classified as a cloth surface, but the overall feeling and stitch of it does feel pretty different and unique from the other typical style cloth pads that I've ever looked into in the past. This does have a very flat feeling to it, and though there is a texture, the texture almost feels a bit thicker in a sense, but it doesn't feel like it's very abrasive off of the surface, because as you rub your hand across it, it does have overall more of a smoother feeling to it. And as you're gliding your mouse across the surface, when you do first get this out of the box, you do kind of feel a bit of the texture a little bit more, but as you begin to break it in, it kind of just seems to smooth out a little bit. And I did want to note to you guys that as I began using this pad, as I first got it out of the box, it very clearly had a break-in period. The dynamics of it kind of shifted quite a bit from when I first got it. Now it does still have the similar type of performance and feeling, but I do feel like absolutely that there was much more of the initial static friction on it, and it almost kind of felt slightly a little bit more muddier when I first got out of the box. And as you use it, I think over the course of like 2 or 3 days is about what it took me to get it fully broken in. This pad really starts to open up a lot more. It gets a lot less of the initial static friction, and the overall performance of it all the way across the board feels much more consistent. And the best way that I can describe the performance of this pad to you guys is it does have a very low initial static friction. Even if you were to push pretty aggressively into it, it does have a very smooth and a very quick glide. But the properties of the cloth, it does feel less slippery if you're down in the micro adjustments or your corrections compared to something like the Lamzu Energon or even the 4114 Aero. And one thing that I wanted to mention to you in conjunction with the performance of the actual surface itself and the base, the AlphaCell base has a very slow elastic property to it. So even though this is a more firmer style feeling base, if you're very light on the pressure of your mouse as you're using it or gliding across the surface, you're not so much going to notice these properties or these characteristics. But if you are someone who does like to play more aggressively, or you like to put a lot of weight on top of your mouse, or if you play aggressively to where you're pushing into it a lot as you're applying any type of additional stopping power, the elastic properties on the AlphaCell is very slow with its rebound time, and it almost kind of makes it feel like it's slightly a bit more muddier. So one thing I did notice about the mouse skates actually having an impact with this AlphaCell base, and I would say in my experience, just AlphaCell bases in general, is when you are using these larger style set skates, especially on the speed of the performance of the surface, I really do feel like these are ideal to use. The bigger skates, they do offer a much more consistent performance and experience when you're actually using it. When I was messing around and using some dot skates, or even the Lamzu Maya, which is my current main with these smaller set skates in the front, again, just when you get aggressive and you put a lot of weight on top of the mouse, or if you're too aggressively push into it as you're coming to a stop or anything like that, I do feel like, again, it does make it feel a bit more muddier. It kind of has this sink in feeling with the slow rebound. So you definitely do notice that. But again, if I were to use the larger set skates on anything like the WL mouse, Beast X Mini, the Attack Shark X3 Pro, when you do press into the surface with these larger style skates, you don't necessarily feel that type of muddiness or inconsistent feeling as much. So throwing it up against a couple of other pads out there, just kind of give you an idea on where the performance lays. When it comes to the Lethal Gaming Gear Saturn Pro, I do feel like the base of this does feel more plush. It is easier to push into, again, where the AlphaCell base on the PadSmith Crucible. It does feel more firm, but you do get more of the initial static and the dynamic friction of the feeling of the Lethal Gaming Gear Saturn Pro, whereas on the Crucible, you definitely notice less of the initial static friction, and the dynamic friction on this one also feels a bit quicker. So we'll go ahead and drop a glide test really quick between the Lethal Gaming Gear Saturn Pro and the PadSmith Crucible. And next up, when comparing it to the Crowsun Ninja, I feel like the overall performance, even though these pads don't feel similar to me to one another, these are both pretty unique in the overall experience of them. I do feel like with the Crowsun Ninja that the overall performance amongst the dynamic and static friction between these is actually kind of similar. Now, my experience with the Ninja is I do kind of feel like the static friction is just slightly a bit higher. There are times on the Ninja that I almost kind of feel like the surface can feel just almost a little bit more sticky. I'm not sure if that's really a good term to use. And I do feel like it's a little bit looser and it feels a little bit quicker down here in the initial static friction of the Crucible. But when it comes to the overall speed and glide across the surface, once you do start gliding on the Ninja, I really do feel like it opens up and it feels a little bit quicker compared to the Crucible. But like I said, overall, the speed of these are really not that far apart from one another. But let's go and drop a speed comparison between both of these. All right, next up, when comparing it to the 4114 Aero, I do feel like all around that the 4114 Aero does feel like it's just a little bit quicker. It does feel like it is a bit more slippery on the initial static friction there, especially when you're going back and forth and trying to make the micro adjustments. And though the speed across the surface of both of these isn't too far apart from one another, I do still feel like the 4114 Aero is just slightly all around a little bit quicker than the Crucible. So let's go ahead and drop the glide test comparison between both of these so I can show you what I'm talking about. All right, I'll go throw one more pad on here. If you watch the channel, know this is one of my favorite pads of all time, the Lamzu Energon. Same thing again, the Lamzu Energon does have a lower initial static friction. You can definitely feel a little bit more control when you're using the Crucible, and the overall speed of the Energon does feel a little bit quicker as well. So let's go ahead and drop the glide test comparison between both of these. All right, guys, so that about wraps things up on the PadSmith Crucible. Not only has PadSmith created my favorite glass mouse pad that I've used to date, I really do feel like they have a hit on their hands here. I think that people are really going to love it once they start using it. And if the performance that I've demonstrated in this video looks like something that you would be interested to, then I can definitely say that I would recommend checking it out. All right, guys, so if you have any questions or feel like I left anything out, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed watching this video and are interested in seeing any more videos like this in the future, please drop this video a like, subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.